Hello and welcome to the D.FINED Engagement BookCast. My name is Doug Fine, and I'm the principal at D.FINED Performance Solutions. Today we have again Devin Halliday talking about his book, Belonging Factor, how great brands and great leaders inspire loyalty, build community, and grow profits. Today's topic is going to be Chapter 6, A Case for Belonging in the Workplace. The workplace is near and dear to our hearts, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. Welcome back, Devin Halliday, to the D.FINED Engagement BookCast. Hello, everybody. This is Doug Fine down in Augusta, Georgia, and I'm here with Devin Halliday, and we're talking about his book, and I'm going to let him tell us the title.
Hey, it's Belonging Factor, how great brands and great leaders inspire loyalty, build community, and grow profits. And I'm so stoked to be talking to you again today about this, Doug. It's awesome.
Great. Hey, thanks for joining me again. And we're going to cover today Chapter 6 of your book. And I want to push back a little bit. I have this sort of like my own individual opinion that I hear too many people talking about great leaders. And you have it in your title, and I always kind of push back on people, and I go, how many great leaders can there be on the earth? You know, by definition, how many people can be great? So when you think about a great leader, am I thinking it the wrong way?
So greatness, there's so many quotes about this concept and idea of greatness, right? And when we talk about greatness, you're ultimately talking about those who operate at a level that far exceeds what the general consensus is, right? Whether it's sports, etc. And so just by definition, that means it's a small group. So when we talk about greatness, when I talk about it, what I talk about is leaders who demonstrate greatness in transactional moments, in interactional moments, or sometimes all around it completely. So generally when we think of great leader, a great athlete, we talk about the all around athlete, right? The LeBron James, the Michael Jordans, etc. Yeah. And so same thing, with leaders, there's several that could come to mind of people who were just world class in every category. But great leaders can be people who do great things for their people or great things for their organization and business. And so the tips here and the pieces along the belonging factor really are to hit on what are those moments, those mind-changing moments for yourself, those behavior-changing moments for yourself as a leader that can have a strong impact and influence on those that are in your care.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's the idea is yes, it's probably a throwaway word in retrospect looking at it, right? It probably is. It's probably a throwaway word. So maybe, I like where you're headed with this, maybe the next book is, hey, you don't have to be great. You just have to be really freaking good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it should be. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit more honest, right? Because the greatness is something that we can all aspire to, and we can all follow behaviors, patterns, and actions that we know lead to consistent outcomes that are great outcomes. But I think the idea, again, emotional intelligence and the ability to really connect what you're doing with what the outcomes are for people, for process, and for the profits of your organization, that is actually a level above what most leaders are doing on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like it, we could say really freaking good or something. Because oftentimes when I see that, sometimes I think, well, there's a bunch of, let's say, mid-level people that are like aspiring to greatness. And I wonder if that's the right motive. When you're a leader, is that the best way to shoot? Like, I intend to become a great leader, therefore I will be great. That's what bugs me, because you know how managers can.
Depends on what your definition of great is, right? If great leader is high earning and title, then you need to know what has to come along with that to actually achieve that. Now, generally, if you focus on that outcome, just like in sales, if you focus on achieving your quotas and exceeding your quotas, you're going to stumble. But if you focus on who your customers are, what your customers' needs are, and how you can fulfill those needs for them, you're not going to have to cold call a bunch because you're going to take such great care of people that they're sending you business, and you're done with funnel management and lead gen and all these other things that take up so much time. And that's when you talk about a salesperson, that's typically where we can find a marker of a great salesperson
Gotcha.
versus a really good salesperson. A really good salesperson works really hard, hits the phones, sets up leads, fills the funnel, and closes them down. A great salesperson takes such great care of their people, their customers, that they're referred the business, that they have a relationship that leads to the additional business. Same thing with leaders, right?
Gotcha.
So taking the transactional elements out of it. And if your definition of greatness is I'm going to do what it takes to make sure that the people I'm in charge of
Yeah.
can kick ass, then you're going to find yourself on a much better path to achieving that outcome. And that's really the genesis and purpose here. But I think I heard you getting to this point of, if you're just aspiring every day to be better, to be more influential, to be more emotionally connected and intelligent with your team, to be more aware of how your behaviors align with actions and output of your team and of the business you're responsible for. Yeah, I think every single organization would love to have leaders that every day had that mentality.
Absolutely.
And because this book is very accessible in how the language, it doesn't dig deep into crazy numbers. It's more stories, it's more relational storytelling, and connecting some of those dots on how to achieve some of the things that some of these stories point out. I think it becomes easier for somebody who's maybe a newer leader or a leader who's been in a position for a while and trying to figure out how do you move into that next mentality that will get you into that next position you want. This is a book that helps make that more accessible.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. I think it's a great book. There I go. I think it's a really good book, and it's very accessible, and the stories. And we're actually going to talk about a story today, Devin. And so we're in chapter 6, A Case for Belonging in the Workplace. Mm-hmm. That's the title of the chapter. And I want to talk to you about this company called Lane Steel. Mm-hmm. And the CEO of that company, he used to walk the shop, and he would wave, and he'd say, "Hello, Joe. Hello, Sally." And he eventually felt like that wasn't not that it wasn't working, but it was superficial. And he started, he needed to go deeper with his people, and he changed to doing something called Talk the Shop. Would you be willing just to share about that story about the CEO at Lane Steel, and how did that transform his leadership as well as his company?
Sure, yeah. So just a super quick way to summarize getting to that point, right? The walk the shop versus talk the shop. Lane Steel is a steel company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which has a long history of being a steel town, a steel city, right?
You bet.
And after mills closed in the 70s, and we started getting more globalization in manufacturing, steel industry around here just changed dramatically. So this company that was started by the current CEO, his grandfather, that company at one point in time, at its peak when steel was just booming here in Pittsburgh, had about 4 times the amount of employees, had about 5 times the amount of revenue over adjusted for inflation over current revenue.
Right.
So when you think about what the evolution is of an organization and an industry, and how socioeconomic factors can change, how political factors can change, et cetera, this is a business that could have, like so many in this area, gone away. And
Right.
And so for Paul, the CEO at Lane Steel, weathering some tough times and some difficult times financially for the organization was something that they've been doing for a few decades. And he started to notice something when he would do what he felt was the right thing, which is, as a CEO, be visible, walk through the shop floor. And when I talk about a shop, we're talking about multiple acres of warehouse space and machinery and everything processing steel into rolls and sheets for consumers, business, et cetera. And he felt it was his job to be a visible CEO. That's essentially what he took away from his father, who ran it before him, and his grandfather. Be visible.
Mm-hmm.
To him, being visible meant, hey, as long as he leaves his office right before he goes to lunch, walks through the shop, makes sure that everybody sees him and he waves, and he goes back into his office, then he's good. But that became a disconnect. And what he started noticing is, as financial troubles were hitting the industry and they were hitting the company, they had to shift some of their priorities of how they would spend money and how they would hire people on full-time versus part-time, how benefits worked. And the bottom line is, walking the shop was actually almost a slap in the face to employees.
Mm-hmm.
And where Paul made the adjustment was to start talking the shop, because he didn't have a set, hey, I have office hours, come in and talk to me. He's a CEO. Most CEOs don't have that. But he decided he was going to make himself accessible in that way. So he'd go and he'd ask if he could sit at the lunch bench outside with folks who were sitting at lunch and just talk with them about their life and what's happening. When he walked through the shop, it wasn't just, hey, Jim. It was, hey, Jim, how are things going? What, this job you're working on, how's it going?
Yeah.
What are the things that we need to do that would help make this easier for you? And then it started evolving into them sharing a little bit more of the personal stuff. He had an employee who had been showering at somebody else's house who had to take the bus to get there because her water heater broke. So he bought her a water heater out of their little employee emergency fund. Right. And so she didn't have to take the bus to that person's house to then take the bus back home to then go to work after dropping the kids at school.
Wow.
These things that a CEO and a company of 50 plus employees, that's enough to be able to be disconnected, but it's also small enough that you can, if you're deliberate about it, connect. So he started to see productivity change. Shift call-offs started disappearing. People who had no interest in aspiring into any type of a supervisory role and were just there to punch the clock, get a paycheck, and look for the next job that might pay them more, started thinking about, what does my future look like here? Because this is a place I feel like I belong. And that feeling started coming up of feeling like, oh, this is a family business again. And so it's evidence that no matter what happens on your arc as a business, where you can grow as a massive family business, go through big changes in the industry, economically, politically, that really impact your business, and still have the foresight to go, you know what, we're still people working for outcomes and working with other people. And when we put that back in the business, it makes the biggest and best change for an executive leader who truly now isn't just managing numbers, productivity, financials, but is now part of the people leadership.
Yeah, I when you were talking about that, I kind of sensed that when you said that the people started thinking about their future at that company instead of just taking a paycheck and looking for the next best thing, I started thinking that they probably, and you mentioned maybe moving into supervisory roles, they probably start, perhaps speculating here, but they probably started going, man, that's a cool guy, he cares about me. And that's the way that's the kind of leadership I want to, if I was ever a supervisor or leader, I'd want to do that too, make that connection with people. So that could have been an inspiration to have people go, it's a good place to work, man. People care about me. Even he cares about me, that's a great story. So that's one of the highlights of chapter 6. And that's kind of what we do each week. We bring up a little highlight. So it again is from Devin's book, and you want to get, and it's called Belonging Factor. You want to give the what do they call it afterwards?
How great brands and great leaders. It's a mouthful, I know. How great brands and great leaders inspire loyalty, build community, and grow profits.
Great. Belonging Factor, folks. Under this bookcast, we'll have all the ways to get a hold of Devin. He's really accessible, and you could talk to him about this. You could first you want to buy the book, and then you want to, he'll answer any questions you have or get to know you about becoming kind of the leader that you want to have, people that belong. You want to belong. And it's an awesome book, Devin. So thank you again, talking about chapter 6. And next week, we'll be talking about chapter 7, a case for belonging in a brand.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
Devin, thank you. Bye-bye.